Well, hello again, and as usual, I've been taking a bit of a look around to see what some of the UFO people have been saying, UFO conspiracy people. And I saw Miles Johnston, still e-begging, of course, and he's put some stuff on there from a guy that I think he might have been Brenda Butler's partner or something. Brenda Butler was one of the people that wrote the book Sky Crash about the Rendlesham Forest incident, and he showed a big, basically it looked like a polka dot coloured a black Star Destroyer from Star Wars covered in polka dots. About a metre long, and he bolted that to the top of his car, and he used to drive around. Oh dear me. Really, extremely poor stuff. Ben Emlyn-Jones, as we know, extremely poor stuff across the board. Anyway, I hadn't looked at Richard Dolan for some time, and I thought let's just have a look and see what Richard Dolan's up to. And of course, Richard Dolan is desperately trying to breathe new life into this the dying UFO subject. They're all trying to talk it up, you know. It's growing all the time, and it's not. The truth is that it's fading fast, the interest in UFOs. And I had a look at two or three Richard Dolan videos. I won't show you any clips from them, but basically Richard Dolan is saying that he talks about the 2004 Tic-Tac incident, you know, with the hundreds of UFOs being tracked by the USS Princeton. Now, I was watching the Sasha Christie channel the other day, and she was interviewing this chap, Cahill, I think his name was, and parts of that story didn't gel. But anyway, this guy was saying that he was talking to he's an NCO, he's not a commissioned officer. He's talking to another NCO in the weapons, in the radar tracking part of it. And the NCO in the radar tracking part of it got this other NCO on the bridge to move the Princeton around. And I thought, well, shouldn't there be some commissioned officers making decisions about where you're going to point the ship for a start? I don't recall this radar operator on the Princeton or Cahill talking about the radar operator on the Princeton talking about hundreds of UFOs. And Dolan seems to be talking about the same incident. He's saying it's hundreds of UFOs, and they're performing these fantastic manoeuvres at 20,000 miles an hour. It's impossible for anything to do. Of course, you know, it's far more likely that if this is true at all, that there were some radar aberrations, maybe a glitch in the algorithms that we're trying to sort out, possibly. At the time, people might have been mucking around with it, who knows. But it's far more likely to be some glitches in the system than a fleet of UFOs. Now, Dolan will say, yes, but there were visual sightings. Well, we're told there were visual sightings. The video that we see does not show the Tic-Tac UFO doing any manoeuvres that can't be matched by the FA-18 or the fighter aircraft that's actually following it. Doesn't even appear to be flying particularly fast. So, you know, we're getting again lots of stories and zero evidence. Dolan seems to have fallen back on the 2004 Tic-Tac story, and has kicked the UFO leak of the century into touch. We're not hearing any more about that for the time being. And he's interviewing his wife, who claims to be able to do remote viewing, and he actually says to her, and I thought that was, I was surprised that he did this, because he says to her, you know, do you actually see things? And she says, well, no, it's more like psychic impressions. And I've said this in the past, you know, if you claim to be a remote viewer, to me that suggests you can remote view something, as I might remote view what's going on in a television studio by looking at a television. I can see detailed images. That's remote viewing. If you're getting psychic impressions, that's not remote viewing. Remote viewing is nonsense. Remote viewing is not possible. And I've got an open challenge to any remote viewer, and this includes Tracy Dolan, is it? Just remote view my house. Oh, mind you, yeah, she says she can't do it. That's right, yeah. So there is no such thing as a remote viewing. But the people that do claim to be able to do it, remote view my house. How many levels has it got? How many rooms? How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? How many vehicles do I own? What are the makes and models? What are the colours? You know, what types of vehicles are they? You know, four-wheel drives, sporty cars, motorcycles, all this sort of stuff. You give me those sort of details and I'll say, yeah, hey, this person can remote view. Psychic impressions doesn't cut it. These are like the, oh, it's coming, yeah, it's a little bit cloudy, you know, I think it might have four wheels, yeah. There could be two-door, it could be a four-door, yeah. It could be a 1300cc engine. Or it could be a 6-litre V8. Hang on, you know, that sort of thing. It's just nonsense, drivel. But anyway, what I was surprised to learn was that, you know, I've said before, you've got to be very, very careful with the UFO field because, you know, it's a business, it's an industry, and people in it actually describe it as an industry, the UFO industry. And I couldn't really quite believe what I was hearing, but on Richard Dolan's channel, they said, "Oh well, yeah, we're not going to be around for a week or two, I think it was, because we've got the cruise." And I thought, really? They got a UFO cruise? So I had a look at Richard Dolan's UFO cruise. Just have a look at this. Now. Can you believe this? So he's got a cruise ship there. It's quite an impressive cruise ship. Goodness knows how much this must have cost to put on. It's a little bit better than the Ben Emlyn-Jones Truth Seekers. Dreaming saucers type thing, isn't it? But he's probably dreaming about something like this. But he's got a UFO cruise. 6th of October to the 13th of October. So what's the date today? Right, 11th. So it's on at the moment. So he's out there bobbing around at the moment, spreading his science fiction stories, and there you go. So there's the ship, and they're cruising from San Diego to Mexico. Now this is on Dolan's, what do you call it? Let's have a look. Now this is the Richard Dolan members thing. Okay. So you can go to this website. I'll leave a link to it below, and you can read all about this, the UFO cruise, October 2019. So presumably you can sign up and you go along, you're cruising along, and instead of getting entertainment in the evening, so you'd be doing normal. I would imagine that you're doing normal cruising stuff that you would do on a normal cruise, but in the evenings, instead of watching the acrobats and all this sort of stuff, you get all these UFO presenters, and they're talking about all this science fiction UFO nonsense. So let's just have a look at one of the presenters, Linda Moulton Howell's there, you know, talking about her science fiction stories that she's been fed by Spartan 1 and Spartan 2, you know. They'll be describing scenes straight out of the movie Alien versus Predator. deep under the ice in Antarctica are these structures. Yeah, sure. Now, zero evidence again for any of this, but this I thought was quite funny. Now, this is a list of the speakers that are on Dolan's UFO cruise. Now, this particular guy, I'll show you. This is actually his site, but this is one of the speakers. It's Zadok Ra Osiris. Okay, now it looks like someone that sells me kebabs actually at the shopping centre. But apparently he's is a walk-in ambassadorial entity of the starseed Raja Merc Dove. Zadok is an oversoul of the ambassadorial complex of the Star Dove's interplanetary mission. Sorry. Zadok is a cosmic high priest from Jupiter. Jupiter doesn't have a solid surface, does it? I suppose he's got a little rubber dinghy. He bobs around in all that liquid, on the top of all that liquid helium at the core of Jupiter. Who has stepped in at this time to assist the Earth in assimilating the new subtle energies and ascension activations. Yeah, fancy getting your ascension activated? Well, zip along, I'm sure. If you hand over your cash to this chap here, Mr. Zadok Ra Osiris, will be happy to help. Stepped in at this time to assist the Earth in assimilating the new subtle energies and ascension activations occurring this time. The Earth's ascension in the new heaven and new Earth reality. For over 40 years, Zadok Ra has been performing starseed crystal planting all over the planet. Well, from looking at the news, to what's going on all around the planet, I'd say that Mr. Ra here has been wasting his time. Perhaps you could let me know what you think. Zadok Ra has been performing starseed crystal planting all over the planet. I don't recall seeing this guy in the shopping centre, to be honest. I've read that twice, sorry about that. Zadok has been performing the starseed, yes, I'm stuck on that line. He's a notable pioneer utilising, Zadok is a notable pioneer utilising Venusian angelic healing techniques. And through his own transformation from human to the higher reality as cosmic ambassador. Zadok experienced a profound awakening in 1980. I wonder what Zadok was doing for a living before he started peddling this stuff. An inherent template for performing the mechanics of ascended master and otherworldly access, aiding independent research into photobiotherapy. Okay. He holds degrees in business and engineering and has an extensive knowledge of lasers and optics. Yes, okay. Well, that will come in terribly useful, I would imagine, with Venusian planting his starseed crystals and using his Venusian Venusian angelic healing. Yes, of course. And he lives on Jupiter, does he? Apparently, this guy. Okay, well, there he is. Now, I'm not getting the impression that this guy is as fruity as a nutcake just by his appearance. We shouldn't judge people by their appearances, should we? Or should we? Now, just in case you don't believe me, I'm just going to scroll up. Now, this is Richard Dolan, remember? One of the so-called more credible people in the UFO business. Let's just have a look at this. I'll just scroll up to the top to show you. This is Dolan's website. I wonder how many people forked out money for this. Really, these are the speakers here. Oh, Travis Walton's going to be telling us a story about his abduction there. Apparently Travis Walton, I did a little bit, not a lot, I did a little bit of research on Travis Walton. Apparently he was a bit of a UFO nut before this happened. He found out there was a $5,000 reward for anyone that could prove it was ET. And apparently him and his colleagues actually claimed that reward. I'll have to check that, so I could be wrong, but that's what I've read. And I thought I was falling about laughing reading or listening to Travis give his account. He said, yes, when he woke up, he was zapped by this flying saucer. When he woke up, he was lying on a table, and these people all looking down on him. And a little bit further on in the interview, the person interviewing said, how big were these aliens? And he said, oh, they're about 3 foot tall. So I thought, well, if they're 3 foot tall and he's lying on a table, what are they doing? All standing on tippy-toe? Or standing on the alien equivalent of orange crates, possibly, to look down on him. Yeah, I haven't looked at it in detail, but it looks like it unravels fairly quickly, that story, to me. Now remember, zero tangible evidence. Lots of science fiction stories in this UFO game. No tangible evidence. So anyway, let's just get to the top. Oh, there's Travis Walton just gone past. There's Dolan himself. And oh, okay. But anyway, it's on Dolan's. It's on Dolan's website about the cruise. I don't know if Dolan's putting this cruise on or whether he's appearing on it or what. But someone else is putting the cruise on. But there you got Linda Moulton Howe. But I thought I thought this was quite funny. The actual poster for the cruise, you know, because obviously you're not going to get to see anything like that. You know, people that are going to go along and expect to see something like this are going to be seriously disappointed. It's going to be lots of science fiction stories, zero tangible evidence, and Dolan's, again, you know, he's saying there's renewed interest in this. He was saying there was the ATIP program that ran till 2012, whatever it is, and he's under the impression that it's still running. Well, it makes sense that any military is going to have an interest in any flying technology, you know, whether it's but it's primarily, of course, with regard to the technology that other countries are going to have, you know, their advanced aircraft. That's what it's all about. And he said that, oh yes, they asked Luis Elizondo, I think his name is, from the ATIP program, if they'd ever recovered any aircraft. We all knew they were talking about UFOs, but he was asked if he'd recovered, if they had any recovered aircraft in their possession, and he said yes. And we all know what he really meant. Well, no, we don't know, do we? Because that wasn't the question he was asked. He wasn't asked, have you recovered any alien technology? He was asked, have you recovered any aircraft? And he said yes. It's a very long bow to draw to say, obviously, he was talking about recovered alien technology, an alien spacecraft. That's nonsense. Zero evidence. Zero evidence for any of this, you know. So Dolan, of course, is trying to talk it up because UFOs are his business, remember? And you've always got to be concerned about people's integrity when they start, when it's a business for them, when it's their bread and butter, when it's their income. They have to generate an interest in this stuff. It's the UFO business, the UFO industry. And they'll go from one subject to another. They'll flip from one story to another to generate interest in it, you know, so they can get more speaking engagements. They can put on UFO cruises. Actually, let's just have a look at that list of speakers. I mean, it's going on at the moment, so if you spent your money on this and you've gone along to see these people, it's going to be too late, I suspect. I wonder how many of these there will be. I suppose top left, these are going to be the top speakers, are they? Dolan and Moulton Howe. Dolan again has peddled some very dubious nonsense in the past with regard mummified aliens that turn out to be human. Recovered material from alien spacecraft that turn out to be industrial waste from Earth. Linda Moulton Howe will repeat any old science fiction nonsense that's fed to her from her whistleblowers. A bit of fanciful artwork here. Of course, this is science fiction. Travis Walton. Do you really think aliens are going to travel across the galaxy to talk to Bubba Lumberjack? And some of these other people I've never actually heard of. Yeah, it does give us blurb on all of these people and what they're going to be talking about. One thing, I'll tell you what, I don't need to spend money to go on this cruise to be able to report back to you that not one of these people will present any tangible. There's our old mate Zadok. You know, with such luminaries as Zadok from Jupiter, how could you possibly doubt anything any of these presenters have to say? Really? I mean, people of this calibre. And of course, calibre is a measure of thickness, of course. And we've got these people here. So, yeah, some new faces there. You know, some of the new faces, goodness knows what they're going to be talking about. But I can guarantee you, you will spend money on your cruise. You'll go along, and you'll probably have a nice cruise. Looks like a very nice ship. But what you will not see is any tangible evidence that anyone is from Jupiter, that the techniques that they're practicing are actually from Venus. That any alien technology or biology has ever been recovered. And there'll be zero tangible evidence for that. Might want to ask Richard Dolan why he's kicked into touch the UFO leak of the century. It seems to have evaporated, that story. You know, along with Tompkins, was it Tompkinson? I can't remember. Actually, no, Dolan refused to publish Tompkins' book, didn't he? So that's one, at least that's one tick for Mr. Dolan. Although looking at this, if he's got anything to do with organising this, I think if he could go back in time, he probably would have published Mr. Tompkins' book. You know, that was the one about turning Second World War U-boats into interstellar spacecraft, just with a few simple modifications. You know, you could nip down the hardware store, get a couple of buckets, you know, paint them black, get some copper tube, wind a few coils, and bingo, there you go. You can travel to Alpha Centauri in your 1942 U-boat. How more ludicrous can this business get? The other interesting thing that I saw was that Dolan said that we're trying to move beyond the little grey men and the little green men, you know, and get into something a little more serious. But of course, you know, he realises that people are sick and tired of these ridiculous abduction stories. Nobody believes it. Nobody has any tangible evidence that they're being abducted. People say they're being abducted all the time, not one picture. They deliberately leave their mobile phones at home, do they, when they're abducted? Or they're abducted through the floor, or they're abducted through the ceiling. These are, of course, dreams, fantasies, whatever. It's not real. Nothing is happening. You know, not one piece of material from an alien spacecraft. And it's interesting that you know, you get these people, they're abducted by aliens, and the aliens are 3 foot tall. They're taken on board the ship, and they manage to escape. They jump up and they run around, and they're trying to find a way out of the spacecraft. Now, people are, you know, depending on whether you're male or female, you know, typically 5 to 6 foot tall. You've got 3 foot tall aliens. You know, the corridors and the rooms in the spacecraft, you're not going to be able to run around in them, are you? Because you're going to be bent over double. You're going to be scrambling around. You're not going to be running down corridors. Critters that make 3 foot tall critters that make spacecraft aren't going to make them with 8 foot tall corridors, are they? So, you know. Unfortunately, it's all ludicrous nonsense. Absolute nonsense. The Tic-Tac story is losing credibility. I think there was some talk. I haven't actually looked at Luis Elizondo. I think he was definitely something to do with the CIA or the intelligence, the world. He was sort of moved around. He was stationed here and there. He was stationed in Puerto Rico. Certainly, if there's some sort of advanced aerial threat program, yeah, okay, that's fair enough. All that is perfectly reasonable. Because, you know, you could have advanced aerial threats from Russia or China, or, you know, these unmanned combat drones, all this sort of stuff, you know. It doesn't necessarily relate to aliens and alien spacecraft. That is a very long bow to draw. The question that Elizondo was asked related to an aircraft, not a spacecraft, not alien technology. Have you recovered any aircraft? Yes. Wrong question. And, of course, because Dolan's industry, because Dolan's in the UFO industry, it's his business, it's his bread and butter. He says, well, of course he was talking about, you know, a UFO, an alien spacecraft. He wasn't talking about an aircraft. Anyway, I just saw some of that stuff, and as I say, I've been having a bit of a quick look around, and these different channels. I haven't looked at Richard Hall lately, but yeah, I've looked at Miles Johnson and Richard Dolan and Ben Emlyn-Jones. You know, this other channel I've recently discovered, the Sasha Christie channel. And I think, I don't know what a story is actually, but I think Sasha Christie claims to have had some sort of UFO ET experience. But certainly I was listening to the interview she was doing with some other woman that claimed this sort of thing, and the ETs came through the floor and all this, and it's obviously either vivid imagination or a dream of some kind. There's no tangible evidence for any of this stuff, and of course none of it makes any sense. None of this makes any sense whatsoever. You know, you're not going to. Aliens aren't going to come through the floor, are they? You know, they're not. You know, if they're going to want biological samples, they're not going to need to do any of that. The other thing too is that a lot of the people that claim alien abduction, they say that their genetic material is taken, and not particularly good genetic samples. Now, I don't know what these women look like, to be honest, but you know, if you were going to use somebody's DNA, you were going to use their genetics to engineer creatures, then you would probably want very intelligent people. None of these strike me as being particularly intelligent. And you might want certain physical attributes. And the people that claim alien abduction are not outstanding in that regard, generally speaking. You know, I mean, they're not abducting, I don't know, who's any of the good-looking actresses, are they? I can't think of no names spring to mind, you know, or any of the supermodels. You know, people like that are not being abducted. You know, people that are being abducted are not particularly the sort of people that you might want to replicate. So, so I don't think any of it makes any sense whatsoever. Now, the bottom line is, you know, as it wasn't actually Carl Sagan's quote. He got it from somewhere. I can't remember where he got it from. But extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. That's a fact. There is no escaping that. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and we see zero evidence. Lots of science fiction stories, but zero evidence. Not one shred of tangible evidence for one of these many stories. Okay, well, I just had a bit of time on my hands, and for a change, I was having a bit of a look around on the internet, and looks like, as I say, Miles Johnston still hasn't got himself a proper job. Still e-begging. Showing a lot of old rubbish about Rendlesham. All right, well, enough's enough. Thanks, as always. Many thanks for watching. And if I don't get bored with this, perhaps I'll see you again.